My fiancé and I were about to celebrate 2 years. He proposed around 5 months ago. I love him more than anything in the world, and I'm reeling from how everything just went down. We had a rough start to our relationship, and I won't go into too many specifics. But before we dated, we hooked up on and off for about a year before I was willing to settle down. He has always held a lot of resentment towards me for that. We had also experienced some other issues over time in terms of him not standing up for me to his family, me being too insecure, and other minor things along the way that often got blown up into more major problems. We have a lot of trouble communicating. I tried to push for couples therapy, and he said he didn't want to go because it would make him hate me more, to relive all of the reasons he resents me. He said he wasn't anti-couples therapy. He was just anti-couples therapy with me. There has been fault on both sides. I'm going to sound biased because this is only my side, but I promise I have been in the wrong so many times too. Not recently. In the past year or so, I have been a mostly perfect partner. I went to therapy and worked through a lot. I have certainly had slip-ups where I've fallen into old bad habits, but I have been deeply committed to making up for past mistakes and treating him like he deserved. But he still views me as the villain I was a long time ago and has never moved past our bad history. He left this weekend for a trip with his brothers, and the night before he left, we were sitting on the couch, and I felt this overwhelming sense of dread and panic come over me. It's time to put a deposit down on a wedding venue, and I was having trouble bringing myself to do it because I have felt like he was pulling away for a couple of weeks. I started crying, and when he noticed and asked why, I told him, I'm feeling insecure in the relationship, and I don't know how many different ways I have to say it before you'll hear me. I feel like you want out and don't actually want to marry me. When I said that, I think a big part of me was looking for reassurance, but a bigger part knew I wasn't going to get it. He immediately lurched back and said, you know what, I'm just going to be honest. I don't want to marry you. I don't see a future. I don't want to keep doing this. I'm not happy. When I leave this weekend, I'm not coming back. And he just totally let me have it, unleashed a lot of things he'd clearly been holding in. He has left or tried to leave me before, and I have always put up such a fight and convinced him to stay. But something in me just said, stop fighting this. So when he was done, I told him, I'm not going to argue with you this time. You're not happy, and I can't force you to be. If all of that is how you feel, you should leave me. The next morning, he packed what he needed for his trip, plus enough to get him through for a week or two of work, and he left. I have been filled with regret ever since. I don't know what to do or where to go from here. We live in a house that took both our salaries to qualify for to pay the rent, and I can't afford it alone. I have 3 animals. The dog we adopted together because he wanted him, so he's actually our dog. But he was perfectly content leaving him behind. So finding a place isn't easy. And 8 months ago, I moved to a city I'd never been into before, far from any family or friends for him, because he wanted to come here. I have not made friends here, and I have no one. I sold my old house and quit my old job to come here, so I can't just go back home now either. I'm stuck. I've always done very poorly with breakups, and this is the first time I've ever lived with anyone. And definitely the first time I'd ever followed a man for love. And the heartbreak has turned up volumes just from the pure loneliness and uncertainty. I just feel distraught and like I made a mistake letting him go without a fight. I feel like I should be begging for him to come home. But I also know deep down he is just going to leave again, eventually. Even if I convince him to come back now. The sunk cost fallacy is so real, and I'm terrified of starting over, and especially of being financially insecure. But more than that, I love him dearly, and I want to spend my life with him. I just don't know how to get him to finally move past the past, or if he even can. I miss him so much already and feel like my heart has been ripped out of my chest. Should I reach out and try to convince him to come home? Is there even a point? Edit. Okay, I hear you. And to those of you who have been kind, thank you. Like I mentioned in a comment, I think I just needed to hear it from strangers that this was beyond hope. I have decided to tell him he needs to deal with the house because he convinced me to move here with him. And I have scheduled some apartment tours. I'm going to move closer to my office and see if I can make the most of this city since my new job is here. So I'm stuck for now, at least. If I can't find a way to be happy after a while, I'll see about getting a job back home so I can be closer to people I love. I did ask my mom to come stay with me for a while because she's retired, and she let me know she couldn't because she just had a biopsy. So a bit of a double whammy, as she'd been hiding that she was having a health scare. If my mom turns out to be sick, I'll almost definitely figure out a way to move home. Thanks, y'all. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. As difficult as it is, this is the best outcome if he is unwilling to work on his resentment. He's angry about the start of the relationship. Holding on to that resentment gives him something he isn't willing to let go of yet. I don't care to put effort into considering what his motivations and thought processes are for doing this if he is unwilling to engage in therapy. This is the healthiest outcome, as he is unable or unwilling to work on things. Do you want a lifetime of someone treating you as the villain in the relationship instead of a partner? Do you want to be with someone you've had to beg to stay with you multiple times? Honestly, 2 years together is not that long, and if it's been this tumultuous, it's never been a healthy or worthwhile relationship. It seems scary and impossible to separate things now that you've changed so much of your life for him. But 30-year-old you will be so thankful you didn't beg him to come back and live in this cycle longer. Comment 2. No, there's no need to let him be reached out. You tried, and you have already seen that he doesn't share any future with you. Do not be with someone who doesn't love you as much as you love them. There are many people still out there who can come to love you as much as you love them. It will take time, but that is how you can tell that you found the one. Do not go back with him because it will affect you more than you know it. Try therapy and see if you can get yourself to forget him by traveling or going to the gym, even to make yourself feel better and keep your mind occupied. You are still young, and start finding someone who will truly be willing to be with you forever. Don't ever take him back because what he did and said was enough, that he would never truly be able to give you his full support, attention, and love. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Well, the past month has been interesting to say the least, and not the fun kind. After he left, I thought that was it. But then, out of nowhere, he came back. Said he made a mistake, that he was sorry, and he wanted to try again. I was skeptical, but my heart overruled my head. We talked, and I thought we were on the path to fixing things. I was wrong. Turns out he came back for a different reason. He had been seeing someone else while we were together, and she was pregnant. He didn't know what to do, so he ran back to what was familiar, me. When I found out, it was like a punch to the gut. I was angry, hurt, and felt like a fool for letting him back in. But here's the thing. I didn't kick him out. I didn't scream or throw things. I just felt tired. I told him he needed to figure out what he wanted because I couldn't do it for him. He chose to be with her, to be a father, and I let him go. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I did it. I was alone again, but this time it was different. I was determined not to let this break me. I started looking for a new place, one I could afford on my own. I found a small apartment that allowed pets, and I moved in with my 3 animals. It was a fresh start, or so I thought. Work was my escape, but it wasn't long before the next bomb dropped. My boss, who had always been supportive, was caught embezzling company funds. The company was in turmoil, and layoffs were imminent. I was scared for my job, but somehow I was spared. My boss was fired, and I was offered a promotion. It was bittersweet. I felt bad for him, despite what he did. But I needed this. In the midst of all this, my mom's health scare turned out to be cancer. It was early stages, but it was still cancer. I was devastated. I wanted to be with her, but I couldn't just leave my new job, especially now. We talked every day, and I planned to visit as soon as I could. Life was throwing curveballs left and right, but I was managing. Then he reached out again. Said he made a mistake, that he wasn't ready to be a father, that he missed me. I didn't know what to feel. I was angry, but a part of me still cared for him. I told him I needed time to think. I was confused, lost, and didn't know what to do. I reached out to a friend from back home, someone I hadn't talked to in a while. She listened, offered advice, and helped me see things clearly. I realized I couldn't keep doing this to myself. I couldn't keep letting him walk in and out of my life. I met him for coffee, and I told him it was over for good. that he needed to take responsibility for his actions and his child. He didn't take it well, but I stood my ground. It was over. Now I'm focusing on me. I'm working hard at my job, saving money, and planning a trip to see my mom. I'm trying to make new friends and build a life here. It's not easy, but I'm doing it. I'm moving forward, one step at a time. Thanks for reading. My fiancé lied about working and cheating. So I forgive him. Then use his fear of commitment to plan the ultimate wedding day. Walkout. To preface this, I want to acknowledge the fact that I'm a naturally paranoid person. I need to know if I'm jumping the gun way too early on a breakup. I've been with my fiancé for a year now, and before him, I've only ever been with one other person, who was horribly physically, emotionally, and psychologically hurtful. Backstory. My fiancé is a big liar. I've caught him in a lot of small lies like reasons for calling out of work and things like walking the dog when he clearly hadn't. A few weeks ago, he hadn't read or responded to any of my messages. And when he got home, he said he had accidentally left his phone in his car before the mile or so walk to the shipyard where he works. Okay, whatever. A little weird, but I let it go. Today I noticed he wasn't responding to any of his messages and checked Life 360 to see his location was in the parking lot of his work. I figured he left his phone in the car again. That is, until his friend messaged me asking if everything was okay, because he hadn't heard from my fiancé all day. When I told his friend that his phone is likely in his car, his friend told me he hadn't shown up to work today. Now I'm like, well, where is he then? At this point, I try to call my fiancé, who must have been tipped off by his friend, because he missed my call, but then tried to call me back like 10 minutes later. I was definitely paranoid at this point and needed to think things through, so I didn't answer, and he comes home about 30 minutes later. When he gets home, he tells me he accidentally fell asleep in his car at work that morning. He leaves for work around 4 a.m. This made absolutely no sense. He had an early night last night and crashed at like 6 p.m. I push him, and eventually he says that he was just chilling in the parking lot all day when he woke up and didn't want to tell me because he knew I'd be upset that he called out of work again. But my gut is really telling me something is off. Anytime he's ever called out before or left early, he's always come straight home and called me on the way. His mom has told me in the past she doesn't trust Life 360 because she said he can manipulate it to not show his current location, but I'm not sure if that's true. He lies to them a lot too. I have no reason to suspect cheating, as this is the only red flag, but he's such a big liar, and I can't seem to believe that he'd not just come home if he wanted to leave work early and call out like he usually does. And B, this is the second time his location has shown he was in the parking lot all day, and now I'm wondering if a month ago was another cover story. Am I right to be worried, or should I give him the benefit of the doubt? It'd be so much easier if he hasn't been a big liar in the past. So he really set himself up to be the boy who cried wolf here. But I don't want to break up over paranoia if I'm wrong. But how can I trust him when he does shoot like this? This isn't okay, right? This seems so childish of him and puts me in a bad spot for freaking out over him playing hooky. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Even a white lie is a lie. They are cumulative, and they will build up. If somebody can get away with those, then they're going to get away with the other lies too. I have recently ended a long-term relationship with very similar situations. In my experience, breaking up was the best thing I ever did. I haven't slept better since breaking up with her. Comment 2. Why do you say white liar as if that makes him not a liar? He's a liar. You cannot trust anything he says. He might not be cheating on you, but he lies to his parents, his friends, his work, and to you. He's a liar. It does not seem like he's ever going to stop. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, after the whole incident with him supposedly falling asleep in his car, things just spiraled. 2 days later, I found out he wasn't at work again. This time, his sister called me, asking if we were both okay because she saw a bunch of police cars at his workplace. My heart sank. I checked Life 360, and sure enough, his location was off. I called him, no answer. I was freaking out, thinking something terrible had happened. Hours later, he walks in, calm as ever. Turns out, he got into a fight with his boss and got arrested. He was at the police station all day, not the parking lot. His sister saw the commotion and thought the worst. He didn't want to tell me because he was ashamed, and he knew I'd be mad. I was more than mad. I was livid. How could he keep something like this from me? But wait, it gets worse. The next day, I get a call from a number I don't recognize. It's a woman claiming she's been seeing my fiancé for months. She saw the whole arrest thing and decided she had enough of his lies. She felt guilty and thought I should know. I didn't want to believe her, but she knew things. Things only someone close to him would know. I confronted him, and after a lot of denials, he broke down and admitted it. He said it was a mistake, that he was scared of commitment, and he was trying to sabotage our relationship because he didn't feel worthy. He begged for forgiveness, said he'd do anything to make it right. I was torn. Part of me wanted to throw him out right then and there, but another part of me felt weak, desperate even. I didn't want to be alone, and I didn't want to admit that I'd been fooled, so I told him I'd think about it. The next day, his mom calls me, crying. She's been diagnosed with a serious illness, and she's scared. She doesn't know about any of the drama, just that she needs her family. My fiancé is a wreck. He's trying to take care of her, trying to make things right with me, and I can see he's genuinely struggling. I decided to forgive him, not because I'm okay with what he did, but because I can't kick him when he's down. His mom needs him, and I can't be the one to add to his pain right now. It makes me feel weak, like I'm just letting him get away with it. But I can't bring myself to add more hurt to the pile we're already dealing with. Thanks for reading through this mess. My partner cheats and racks up my credit card. So I kick them out and take back control of my finances and my life with a smile. Long story short, we've been together for 5 years. I've done and said some stupid things during that time, and she has her own internal problems and is generally very emotionally driven, whereas I'm not. It ultimately means we've just drifted apart, and our day-to-day has turned into mostly arguments, and her complaining that I don't make her a priority. But that's a different story. As a last attempt to try and see if we can salvage things, I suggested we go to couples therapy. She unfortunately says she can only do Friday afternoons due to her work schedule, so it's proved super difficult to find any therapists within that small window each week. I ended up having to pay out of pocket without insurance for an online service that offers weekend appointments to try and prioritize it. As my girlfriend said, she doesn't want to go back to work after a therapy session if she took an hour out during a weekday at work. We moved in together in year 2 of knowing each other. Since I earn a much larger amount of money than she does, it was decided that I would cover the major bills such as rent, utilities, car insurance, gas, and so on. And she would cover health insurance, car insurance, cell service, and groceries from time to time. This was before Infection 19, but as you know, everything is now majorly more expensive. The bills I pay increased to also covering her car payment, cell service, and pretty much everything else. She now only pays for health insurance and occasional groceries. To give her some credit, she has helped out occasionally with larger expenses from her savings, once every few months for around $2,000 to $3,000. But aside from that, not much else. Long story short, my outgoings are about $4,000 per month compared to her current $600 per month. She earns about 50% of what I currently take home from my business, but currently contributes about 15% of the total monthly expenses. We've had conversations recently about bills and how we could better split them, but she has a tendency to turn it back on me and start saying stuff like, "Are we just friends? If you were living on your own, you would still pay the same rent, so you should exclude it from the amount you pay. I paid the deposit for the apartment when we moved in, so I've done my part. This is a refundable deposit I asked her to cover since I was covering all the rent. It was about $3,000. The rent itself is $2,350 per month, which I pay. I end up just not bothering with the conversation and nothing is resolved. Fast forward to today, and we're about 95% at the stage of ending the relationship. And today we discussed how we might decide to move forward since we currently live together and have a lease together. She has suggested we remain living together, but sleep in separate bedrooms. We have 2 bedrooms. whilst we start going to couples therapy. She also thinks we should be friends for the time being whilst we go to couples therapy, so there are no expectations from either side. I mentioned I am not completely against the idea, but since we are technically friends whilst we go to couples therapy, which will take weeks, if not months, that it would probably make sense to start 50-50ing the rent and utilities in the apartment. She was quite quick to respond by saying, "If money is that important to you, then I guess I know where we are." Is that really the most important thing you can think of right now? Basically, she wants to continue living in the apartment as friends, is pretty against the idea of paying 50-50 for bills and utilities, and is making me feel bad for suggesting it, saying that I have my priorities all wrong. Am I in the wrong here, or what? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. One more thing I want to say about this. Let's say you agree to be just friends and live together. How do you think you would feel if you came home one night and she was having intimacy intercourse with a guy in her room, and you are still going to couple therapy? Don't think it won't happen. Get her out now. Comment 2. If you all are roommates, you all are roommates. She should pay half, and if not, she needs to move out. Sounds like she's banking on you being a pushover and having feelings for her still, and is manipulating the situation in her favor. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. So, a lot has happened since my last post. The tension was already high when she dropped the surprise. She'd been seeing someone else. Said it was nothing serious, just a few dates to clear her head. I couldn't believe it. After all the therapy talk and trying to make things work, she was out there playing the field. It felt like a slap in the face, especially since I was the one footing most of the bills. I confronted her about it, and she had the nerve to turn it around on me, saying I was too focused on money and not on us. But let's be real. How could I not think about money when I'm bleeding cash every month for both of us? It was like she was living in a fantasy where actions didn't have consequences. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, I found out she'd been using my credit card for these dates. She accidentally took it from the counter, thinking it was hers. Accidentally? Yeah, right. That was the last straw. I was done being the doormat, done with the lies and the cheating. I told her she had to move out. She pleaded, cried, said she'd change, but I'd heard it all before. I couldn't trust her anymore. It was a tough call, but I had to protect myself. I couldn't keep living with someone who had so little respect for me and my hard-earned money. She moved out the next day, took her stuff, and left. The apartment felt empty, but it was a relief too. No more arguments, no more wondering what she was up to behind my back. I changed the locks, canceled my credit cards, and started the process of untangling our lives. It's been a rough few days, but I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm taking control of my life again, and it feels good. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.